Yes. Ready?
Ready.
Yes, ready.
Ready?
Ready, Besa? Oh, yes, ready. Everybody's ready.
Everybody's ready. Okay, great. Okay, so welcome back. Our next topic is going to be a elaboration on aspects of language and communication.
That tiring as a Janatikarin system balaya Keta Dandage or what communications not Dandage Jushandorwa. They Aneko Kasugureta, Cho Chirabasugura, the Teta Laya, and this Tajibu on the Tagiens.
So to learn and study about aspects of language and communication, one place neuroscientists go is to use animal models to model these processes.
Ta keta ane dandege kurange aspect system balaya kugungu ge da neta mambuchila tabi kapsa na wansa chenri page karachi gore sana samchen la ya ane taksechi ne samchen ge taksechi ge pezu de ane chunkor peche tangi ores.
So very specifically, we're going to talk in this session about language production and language learning in songbirds.
Ta labata tanda de kapsa so kareta ge sena ane ta chu ke nyambu dongni ge chatin da yorwa ta khosu ge imbaina khosu ge chetang na ne ane ke jaya ta ane ke chetin chia chorwa oti korte ta ge yens.
So we'll learn a little bit about why songbirds are a good model system for vocal learning.
Ta ngasuge tande chalaya ane ke nyambu janye ge chatin da do imbaina ne chi ke jaya ge thela simji chia ge pitsin de yapu chi imbe kola ta yores.
We'll talk more about brain circuits and the genes that control these brain circuits in songbird vocal learning.
Tanga so kareta gen sena tanda cha kutsuge cha ta chuti ke nyambu janye cha ta chuti na la ya ne ko ke ti trimbi kapsa te tan rewa yo chuge lepanangi dalam kari menda ane te la ya chi tanzin chi ni ge rigzi kari menti ko la ndesha jayens.
And then lastly, we're going to look at a research study that investigates how birds maintain their song over their lifetime.
Ta thamatila ngasuge ta cha chi imbaina ko ke janye ge cha te imbaina ta ko se she ta ta ke nyemu ja chi goro she ta chi ke nyemu ja chi goro te ko ge ta se kanza la ya jun tu ne nyet ke yo pe ge ane ta se simji chi gore te ta yens.
And all of this is kind of under the umbrella of thinking about what we learn about bird songs can be translated or is homologous to how this works in humans.
Ta tanda this sama kage ola chap ko yore sana ngasuge cha ge ta ke nyemu ja go yo bate khusu kandas jang do kandas chetin chi ge do se te taksi chi wa te ge ane te ane ngasu dro mi ge ke jang thola su peche tang ba da ya na te ge chongcha dis ko da ne dro mi ge ke jang la ya su peche tang ya te ge chet chi ge yores.
Okay. So this process of vocal language learning is one that can be very sort of simply broken down into thinking about how neurons drive the activity of muscles, muscles promote behavior, and then we have this sensory feedback to maintain the accuracy of this behavior. That this gora tanga suge ke shete la ya ane ko drotan de kanaro system bala ya ngasu wansa ge ane ngasu wansa la tene de te ngasu ge ta shadim te la ya guche tang was gor wa shadim te la guche tang gore shadim te la tene de ta ngasu ge shichu la ya jor du gores ta de ta nyam te ngasu la sujo sala ya sensory feedback se ge wa wansu ge ta dila kala doksu ro wa doksu te jungu yores ta kuram dina ro chika kan la du yores. So maybe you can see in each one of these videos, there's a very complex behavior that is occurring that is maintained and kept accurate through sensory feedback to the nervous system.
Ta tanda de la ta ba imbaina de ta la ya ko chegu khashi chi do wa chegu te na ne khashi imbaina chi nyukta chawo din da yo bares Imana data te nga su ge wanso ge da ko doksu sigro wanso ge ko feedback jiwa sigro da wanso ko la shin ko yin chur dalena te le doksu jiwa ta la tene de te ne jun rambo chi la ya nit ku yores.
Okay. There. All right, so the definition of vocal production learning is the ability for the listener to reproduce sounds. I don't know. It keeps cutting out of the video feed.
Aku gila. Computer laptop chambu tina tole Google Class na sign chirust ajade chambu chik. Computer chambu chita. Tege sign chirust. Google Class kachi shashi tina na yor slide. Ajade. Ajade tega. Tasang chita chambu chita tichi shandir. Tichina yagar, tichembudi. The less. The go on the less. I am present like the Gunda. Oh, didn't it? Congress slideshow like the Congress. Well, slideshow the file now here again. What did? File now there was slideshow say tomorrow. Ale slide now here slide. Part of the pa. Slide now in your slideshow like what? Mama, tine marda. View, ale. That viewless. That is what they viewless. Mindy कर सके Mindy के कर सके तादंदे दे
Great. Thank you. Okay. All right. Shall we get back to it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Vocal learning is this ability for the listener to reproduce the sound that they're hearing.
다 케체 텐종아서 그러다 케티 제바세데 가서고레 세나와 아니 다 ཉენ켄치게스로다 고서위게 아니 다치 고서위게 다치 양체팔라야 스팀바스고와 텔레코고요레스.
As you know, humans learn their language through this vocal learning process.
다 최소 시바 나샤가스 미임바나 고 케장에데 단다 다 케장에게 저름치고와 데줄리 장고요레스.
Songbirds also learn in the same manner, which is what we'll talk about a little bit more.
다 케nye 로피기 차테임바나 고소고 양테 케티 저름 타가라제 주치 장고요레스.
In fact, there's a number of species, a handful of species that are able to learn in this manner. Shown on the right are 3 types of birds, and on the left, 5 types of mammals that can learn this way.
다다다 케테 나테 딘다 종야게 샘첸 망보요레 니르고 망보요레 스타 처조사테 바이바나 자기 니르고 만다와 숨시도와스 네 파조텔린 바이바나 가츠 테 네스소 차가나네 코 소차만다 nga요레스 파조텔라.
So we are going to focus on songbirds, which are shown over here in the upper right.
다 처조살랑가 수그 차테 케니 로페 자스도와 어텔라야 타게yes.
Okay, so a human infant learns their language through first starting with like an imitation, a babbling, like ba ba ba, ma ma ma, da 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 da. And then they move from that to words, and then to understanding a bit more about the grammar and the meanings of those words.
다가 수그 지바임바나로와 다치 그게 춘춘라 다 손바임바나 담보텔라 영가 답드디 정그레스 당가 수그 다다다 마마마라 소파 고수그 답드기 츠치온 거도와 담보테 고수그 정그레스 때 정하테야 담보데가 수게 레디 쥐알라 메믹렉도와 레디 쥐알라 레모 쥐알라 때네 정그레스 다티 장노 제라야 아니 고수게 츠 이게 제라 시비제라 아니 칼레칼레 츠기 정그레스 데네 렘신데 아니 가수그 다 츠기 조스그로와다 고게 츠그 도탄 간다드미 벨라 소파 치데테 아니 텔라 텐데데다 고 체튼 치아치고로 테용고요레스.
So, we're going to talk a little bit about why we can use birds to understand human language.
다단다데 가서가 속에 다 지금 미기 케이스고 다 케장에라 학과에게 제도 잘라야 그렇잖아 뜻이 지고요레스 대타기스.
Humans learn their language through language-specific sounds. Songbirds do the same thing. They learn the specific song of their male parent.
다가서 다디 정고에게 준생가를 시스템발아야 내가 좀 밀을 좀 봐이나 아니 케치타팔라 요피기 아니 그 드라스그로와 드라티 정그레스 로 케치타팔라 요피기 드라티 정그레스 다가서 데라야 송버 다 케니도베샤데 가시게 바나 가서게 데 쿠이글라 라그도와 다 케니도베차 테타오임바이나 야 쿠수게 지 시타파데 정그레스 지 치타파데 관에 정그레스나 타차티기 파키스탄의 정그레스 팔라기산의 정그요레스.
Both animals and both the birds and the humans have a process of first listening to others and then a sensory motor portion of the learning where they are practicing and listening to their own vocalization.
다 담보텔라야 가서 차탄다 다 개념도베 차데탄다 미니찰을 촌바임바이나 담보텔라야 가서 다 원소게 다 시종을 마치도와 원소게 시종을 마들라 가시고레세나 셴다 되게다 케시나레 셰탄바임바네 때 녜그레스 담보텔라 담보텔라 니 되게 제라야 가서 원송 그쪽이 탄데비 원송 그쪽 탄데비게 야 정야치고레스 데카스임바이나 다 수수수수게 케탄 수수수수 셰탄야텔라 수수게 녜그레스.
So in both humans and birds, you have You start with babbling, you listen, practice, and then end up with your final adult speech or your final adult song.
Ta tanda dela ta pa imbana ngasu me ta cha inshallah ta pa imbana karchi gresena tampo dela ya pui imbana tampo dela ngab da du ti chongorwa ni tige jela ya ne ta ko mi gamba ke kecha shekun tila nye no ge jela ne ko ta yad tan stambala ya mi gamba chans stambala ya ta khola ya ke ki ta chechi tu yongorwa e nanjing ge chala ya thana je chongo yores ta tampo dela ya ta ko karso gore ta sap song se go ta ye ge ta cheta pas ko ta tumchen tumbu tena do ku ge jang de ge jela ya ne nye jong de che thamatela ya te chati dharma chans stambala ya ne ko je te cha changwa chi ta she ne tong de cha gores.
The sensory learning and the sensory motor practice has to occur within a discrete time point of the animal's development, or else they will not develop adult speech or they will not develop their adult bird song.
Ta tanda ki de ta cha ta me inshallah chomba imbana tanda ko ke janga stwa ke janga de ta thapar de tanda nga su ge wangso tan rabi ki sejong te ta wangso gushu tan rabi ki sejong shi arwa te insha te ane tichong ichin chi ka la jong go yo res rwa ta tichong ichin chi na manjong ba imbana me la imbana ane ko ke she khapu ta ke ma she ge ne ta cha imbana cha te ki she se go ta ko ge je te ma she ge ne ta te jong res.
And then lastly, for maintenance of adult speech or adult song, there's this process of auditory feedback to maintain and ensure that you are accurate in the speech production or in the song production.
Ta thama tela karesena nga so ge ta mi imbana ke te ko juni che ta cha imbana ko ge je te ko mat ta tang thya gi che te kare yoresena nga so ne thwechor ge ya doksu ge ramba te yang insim chin ru gu yores tela tene de te ane ke na de mi na ke ta cha na cha ge she chu yorwa o tindu smet te nit kres.
Okay. Now, I'd like you to do a little bit of work. If you are thinking about a bird's brain or a human's brain, what discrete parts of the brain or the nervous system are required for learning a song and producing that song? So I want you to think very carefully about what would be the critical portions of the brain that you would need to do something like that.
In the terms of human or in the terms of bird? Do they need to think as a bird?
In terms of human, because I don't know that they know anything yet about a bird's brain.
Okay.
I'll show them that it's similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for humans. Yeah.
Okay. That anda dila ya chisu karila sambutan roche es na roa. Ani ngatsu michi imbana michi ki kechi jangaya la ya. ane lepe ki chashi kare gugu yore swa ta tanda de kas cha ki chi lepa ki cha ki te shi ki mesa mila shi sha pa na ane ko ke chi jangaya skoro ta chi jangaya la shebar chia la ya shebar chia ta tane nga su ge ane thamat la nga su ge ke ti man ko chetan chi gu yoro ndong gu yoro ngne man dong gu yor wa odi chia la ya tampo jangaya ta tane ma ndoya la ya ne lepe ki chashi 다 체다 봐서 그러와 관계 지 축구요 레스 대가라야 삼르다로지스
I want them to think about it. We're going to make a list.
sure 다다 대가라고 삼르다로지스 게 정야다 응가니만 동야서 그러와 어때라야 레페기 차시 치러봐 그래 가르친 고사레스 어때가라 삼르다로지스 삼르다로지라네 가순데라야 투드르고스
Is it because it's running out of battery or it's just going to sleep? I think it's just going to sleep. Oh, I see. over, maybe a minute's going to start, maybe we're going to talk about the projects. I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
The main title without a little bit of description. Don't you? Like, just like the McGurk effect. Oh, okay. Okay. Science teachers to help them understand which topic, some of the details about each topic, about the All right, so I think they're probably done, right? Okay, let's come back together.
Let's go. That's us. That's yours. That's how my yes yours.
All right, who'd like to contribute one area of the nervous system that you think would be involved in vocal language production?
That's just what was tricky is, right? That's okay. Case grota. Ngati. Janaya tangan doyala. Ani kiti sugrota. Janaya tangan doyala ya joy pigi lepi chashi kares.
Motor nervous system.
Gucho on savala. This is motor nervous system. Motor nervous system.
Motor nervous system. I want more specific. What parts of the motor nervous system are required?
Gucho on some alakanane chashi chita balata bayana chita kares.
Madam,
primary motor, primary motor nervous system.
Primary motor cortex?
Cortex.
Okay.
cortex. And broca. Ani tutur ngaram lagi. Warnings.
Yeah, Broca's area. That's it.
Tutur ngaram lagi. Tutur.
Warning.
Tutur yora. Ngaram lagi.
Tutur.
Ani primary auditory
cortex. Primary auditory cortex.
Great.
Sensory motor
Warning. Jemba kariyo resa.
Tutur wangda tasu.
Tutur ngaram.
Tutur wangda tasu.
Tutur
Wangda tasu.
tazu. Auditory nerve.
Primary visual cortex.
Visual cortex.
Yeah.
Visual cortex.
Why? Why visual cortex for this type of learning?
Primary
Ani sadam.
visual cortex.
Primary visual cortex.
Why?
But resa.
와 단다 가사 퇴초게 레슈 갈치네 연구 요로에사
통수를 열심히 연구하되 아니 가져셔야 되잖아 바다고 근도 매 동방구야 당 아니 카당 제len구 당 텔라테네 자테 따달len구
아하
대 총차 무든 통수를 다시 때 같이 모여래서
I think because when we understand or produce, we sometimes we look on the people's face to understand.
Can people who are blind learn their language?
Aha. Tatachi by nas me long by na ke jant karwes. Ah. Yes.
Yes. So maybe it is very helpful for understanding the gestural portion of communication, but not probably necessary for the vocal learning that's occurring during development.
Aha. Tata de la su vocal learning sa na nga sagoro nga jaya tanga chetin che sagoro. Hotel ay chichi by na nga su ge thonsor ge lesson chi goro. Ti dewa chita yo maris. Ta tin na nga su ya ke system balaya Zupu gutang tang chi tang tab tang la pa la da la so pa yorwa na ta te ba na ya ta nga su consolation ti peche tang garwas ta jenda ya any other
Thalamus.
The thalamus.
Thalamus.
Why?
kachine lebu kachine
Kan
resa
sawa ina ro. Tanda wangbo nga na la jingma do shimba chasan yeso lewa la station ro di thalamus chagro. Din leni dini lebe chaje shimba la tangora. Cheza di junior about to station ro chagores.
yeah that he says thalamus is the look like a station for all the sensory information to arrive and then sent to the brain regions for processing.
Great. Thalamus. Okay, what else?
ta jemba kare yo resa
Warning lady.
ha
Warning lady.
Wernicke area says Wernicke.
Wernicke's area. Okay, great. Why the hippocampus though?
Hippocampus lemba. Ah. You need to store the language you learned in your memory and then produce it. So
Okay.
it's,
All right. I'll buy that.
Tsutamaro hippocampus lena.
What else?
Ta jemba kari yoresa. Ah,
Lebu wang.
dundalapshin. Dundalapshin na kare. Prefrontal cortex.
Frontal cortex.
Prefrontal cortex.
Why?
Te kawela then dundalapshin na ka dundalapshin na prefrontal cortex te korwa.
Diri.
Frontal cortex re prefrontal cortex re.
That dundalation frontal inside.
Frontal cortex.
The frontal cortex is huge. And it includes the primary motor cortex, so I'll accept that. But probably not the prefrontal cortex is probably not necessary in the vocal language learning.
Okay. Tata anda nga su frontal cortex system bale chembu re so tata digra de shenda chinga su la ya primary motor cortex yorwa tina su gi yores imba na tanda chi se prefrontal cortex tata nga dungu gi lesson sa yorwa o tim ba na ane ta nga su nga khse gro ta nga keti nga ti ko jangya ta doya la ya ta ta speche tanga mares.
When you think about the coordination required to move your mouth and tongue, what parts of the brain might be necessary for that?
Ta twa ya pu chi yes ro ta nga su gi keti trin system bala ro nga ko jo pa te bi kap su ro nga te ma chin dom bi kap su kha ta chile ting gu ta la ya ko ge de chi de tu tang nyin chi gu gu ya ro 당념 치 치고 와 당아 주 코디네이트는 데트 당념 치 치고 와 데트 야고 치 치나 다테 용 거로 와다 데트 치와 탄 데비게 레파게 차시 그랬다 아 그래 sensory right
Sensory what? That's huge. Sensory. What do you mean by sensory?
왕설라나 예 챔버에서 왕설 가려했다 퇴소 왕사야
Auditory. Ha.
Kille sir, kille.
Chile.
Kille.
Ha?
Midbrain.
Kare?
Kille. Leba kima dile.
This is midbrain. Midbrain.
Midbrain. Why? What do you know about the midbrain?
Tanda di gujo tan di jido di lega chedu ko di kille di.
Gucho karen gucho tang.
Namogi chashi tanda chile da di jo khai gujo ge jira. Odi changem bo chedu.
It says like the movement of mouth at tongue is coordinated or
Okay.
in the midbrain area.
Midbrain area for coordination. Okay.
Of the movement of tongue and mouth.
Kinda these are auditory sensory neuron sir.
Auditory sensory.
Sensory neuron.
Auditory sensory neuron.
Yes. I think we have that up here already.
Sorshe mala gila. Dadi sorshe mala nan dada kharza.
Sorshe mala is sensory.
Odi sensory. Tinala dada di primary somatosensory cortex lagta teach.
Primary somatosensory cortex.
Yes. Tell me why.
Kachinere.
Why is that needed?
Koyama gujata tanzin cheto teach.
It regulates the movement.
Of what?
Karen gucho tang, ching gucho tang.
Chetan digidi yora, ombo digidi yora ge.
Tongue and other organs.
Right. So you need to have feedback. You need to have some sort of sensory understanding of how your tongue is moving and how your mouth is moving to be able to move it appropriately. So yes.
Ta tanda ite gogo yore esro ate gono go jinse kare system balaya ane chitang go susu ge khata chi kanda sum gogundu te ge wansor chi yorwa wansor te yangseng atsu ge doksu chi na tang gogo yorwa te ge chwa chi gogo desi chi gogo yorwa te ge ta ko tanda de gogo yore sa.
I think this is a great list.
Ta tanda nga chula thupe ya puchil he sons.
So let's look at a schematic now of everything that we've just talked about.
Ta tanda nga chu de la desi ja ju te kanza ane mu la ya kanda yo me chikta ge yes.
Great. Okay. So what we're looking at here, on the right is the human brain, on the left is the bird's brain.
Ta tanda nga su de la tungo chi ju de ta dola ta pa imba na ane isho sala yo ge lepati mi ge lepares ra yensho sala yo pati ane chag lepares.
As well, here is the trachea, which is part of where the vocal cords are to produce the sound, and the similar structure here in the bird is called a syrinx.
Ta de nga su ge dila gala garta me pa dimba lag ran dimba ta dimba de su de nga su ge ke ta ya ge tiwa ge te tha yo sa sa wa te ane su sala ten je te mi ti je ane phajo te chag ga chres.
And in this human brain, there are areas that you have already pointed out as important for vocal learning production.
Ta tanda mi ge le pala ta pa imba na tanda che su de la ya ken dimba la sa ko ta ke timba la te nga te timba la ya ke chambu imbi ge le pa ge chashi khachi du stra yes.
So in this view of the human brain, the front of the head is here, and this is the back of the head.
Ta dusta pa imba na so isho sa ade le pa ge den sho ta yon sho sa te le pa ge jap sho res.
And in these different colors, you'll see different areas that we spoke about. So in green is Broca's area. In this purple, orangish color is the motor cortex.
Ta tanda du ta ba imba na chitu shepa na shen tanda jangkhu na yo sa te ka res na Broca ge khutires ani shenda tanda te kasalam do ta yana sincha ge do chdo ga la yo sa te ka res na gucho ge la shin res.
You also mentioned the thalamus, which is shown here, and an area that you did not mention but is important is part of the basal ganglia, which is a subcortical structure known to regulate movement.
Ta shenda chi kare re system balaya tanda dinane roa chichu ge tanda thalamus gro nga chu ge lebu roa
lebu koti res ani senda chi chechu ma she ba te ka res na ta de la ya ani lepa ki chashi de che ti ti ka res na ka sa ti ti guchu tang zen chi ni ge lepa ki chashi chagyo res.
So it's thought that these structures sort of here in the subcortical and cortical portions of the brain are part of the learning of the language circuits.
Ta tanda de la ya nga su ge lesson tang lesson go ola yo chu ge tanda ge de la yo chu ge ta chi dalam shi to garwa de de ka res na nga su ge ke jaya tang de yo chu ge le pi ki chashi res.
And then from here, for the motor cortex, you can see that it's connecting with areas of the midbrain and hindbrain, where you then will see the nerve coming out to drive the muscles of the vocal larynx.
Ta tanda de la ya shenda che chu ge ya ko dalam chi thong do asta dalam de ka res na guchu lesson che ne parlab che ne jable che tu sung go do ra du sung de ta adi ga su ga testum ba che ge ka shadum lai do thak do as this.
What's really important in this picture, but not represented, is the auditory system, the auditory cortex, that's just not represented here.
Ta danda de ga mu din na ta me pa kan sila ya ke chembo im ba te ka res na nga su ge thusu lesson do thusu ma la ti chagyo res.
When we look at the bird's brain here on the left, the authors of the creators of this schematic kept the colors similar, even though the names are very different in the bird's brain.
Ta tanda de ka su nga su ge yon sho sala yo pi gi chat gi lepla ta ba im ba na ani phajo sala yo choya ta sejo sala choya gi ani ko ge ka su ge remote ta chontra ge te ko ka sa chontra ge chonton te su ga ta ta da gi che te ne chontra te chi bo pe cha ta se ro phajo su ro im ba na ya ko ge lepa ge chashi su su ge min te ha cha man ro yo res.
So the equivalent structures that were in the human cortex are shown here in green and orange in the bird's brain.
Ta tanda de la ya nga su ge mi ge le pala ta ba im ba na mi ge le pa na ne le shin tang de yo chu cha shi de ta ani phajo cha im ba na ya ko chontra jangku ta chontra lithi na la ya chomba chi sha yes.
The bird's brain also has the striatum, the thalamus, midbrain, hindbrain. All of these same structures are involved in the vocal learning of for birds as well.
Ta tanda de la yo pige chagele panana stratum se chashi ti che le bu che te ola pala ta jable tu su chama im ba na chage korang ge ta she jang shi to ro da ko su ge ke ti jang ji jang ya ti na la ya ni chashi lenge yo res.
So the point I want you to take away from this is that the bird's brain has neural circuits that are very similar and do the same job as the circuits in the human brain for the vocal learning.
Ta tanda de na ne che chu ge nge gwe de ka re se stambala ya nga chu ge ta mi gi ke jang ya so ro ta ke jaya la ya peche tanga ge ne wansa ge dalam chi ro o tine do ta ko ti tan drive ge dalam ti ne cha im ba na cha ge khutsu ge te she te jang bi kap se ya dalam chi pa chi chan peche tang yo ba te ne che su ngi gu res.
Okay, I was going to show you a very cute video of a juvenile bird learning from their adult tutor, but it's on my computer, and so I'm not going to be able to show it.
They can click on the link and we can.
Do you think it will work?
Yeah. Or he can. Video the yeah, he can connect from his computer. Search करजी जाएंगे अने लगा न्यंबो चियो साथ तेंगो से.
Aha. So if you scroll to the
Or
you can hear it.
Tell it there. Ah.
It is New York Times, yeah. But it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Great. Yeah, no worries. Can we? Okay. So, let me talk to you a little bit about the development process of learning a song in these songbirds.
다 단다들라야 가수게 추스시셔요. 그래서 추 청청 되주거와. 근데 그속에 가서 그래. 수속에 다 차티스 gem바치크사니 시 장아기 주름 콜라 추스시셔요.
So this is a timeline of their development from when they are hatched from the egg till they're adult at P90, which stands for post-hatch day 90.
다 단다들라야 그 차치임바나 그 고안나니 다 제베기 스고라다 고아카키 제베네 지데데 니 터마치카 스고라 차티 단다게 개념부로베기 차치도 와다데 터마차바데레스달라야 피 구추타마트샤도데 카레스나
From post-hatch day 30 through 65, the juvenile bird is listening and memorizing the adult tutor's song.
타코 지니기 니마 숨치니 니마 투치랭아 바로텔라야 차티기 추티기 까치고레세나 아니 차 gem바치크 사니 장주기 셰데 아니 코 까스고레세나 데
Overlapping this time period is the animal is also practicing the song, learning, practicing, all the way till the adult song is what they call crystallized or fully formed or fully created.
하다 단다 니마 숨치네 투치랭아 서고다 데다 뚜냠발라 서고와 냠바 잔나 가르친 거레세나 다 니마 숨치 카시스케 제네 니마 구칠라르 파타네 쿠수게 존더 치기요레스타 카가나네 제데 땅치도스 존더 치기요레스 다 델라 카르스그레세나 다 두스 존더 치발라 테네 데탄다 니마 구칠라르 피크업스다 코스 터마 차 피크업스 서고와 니 시티 크리스탈라이즈 차르세스 담발라야 제테 차차마치 네 야푸치 신요레스.
Okay, so this is a way that people who study vocal song, song behavior in songbirds represent or measure the vocal output of birds.
다다데 임바나 차게 타코게 켈라야 심지치뉴 쿠수 임바나 텔라 심지치데데 아니 केगी ता दिमबाना ता दुछु मिनरो ता तिति अनि कसुगरे ता थुरिला पापागे दुस छेजेगी ओरेस.
Okay, so let's look at this top panel here. Along the x-axis is time.
ता गंगे तेला ताबा इमबाना रो गंगे ताबा इमबाना अनि ngasuge te thethika ganglaya and on
the y-axis, you're seeing frequency. So if you remember a little bit about the auditory system, we record sound or we talk about sound in the terms of frequency and amplitude. So the frequency of the wave of sound and the height of that wave.
Nahata cheso tamba sugo pa mana ngasuga drag kolandeshe jabi kapsroa kari deshe jagore sena drag duche sugo ta ko duche teta ane ta thuse sugo ta otig ngogan deshe jayo res.
Okay, so if you remember then, frequency, you can also think about that as the pitch of a voice. A high frequency would be high-pitched, and a low frequency would be a lower-pitched acoustic sound.
Ta da de la ya de che sa de che su ge yang ta se ko ta nga su ge pitch se na ta yang ta la sam na ta na ko re swa ta de che thum bo yo se na ta thu yo pa ta de che ma yo se na ta ma yo pa yang ta ma yo pa la ko na de res.
So a third piece of information in this data is the intensity of the color. So the color here goes from red to yellow, with the yellow being the more intense information, and that intensity is related to the loudness, how loud the sound is.
Ta da de ka se yang jenda chi che su shi gwa chi ka re re se na de na la ta khan do ko chon tha man do wa khan do ko tak se se ko wa man do as ta de ba na de na ne ma pu ta sar pu do wa ta sar pu yo pa te ka tak se thum bu yo pa chong go res ro ta de ge ta kha do ko tak se la te ne ta jinga su ga da chi yo ba na da te ge da chi lo se ko ra ta chen bu yo me ti chong go yo res.
Okay, so each one of these columns of acoustic information represents what we call a syllable that the bird sings.
Ta da de ka sang asul ta ba ba na ko ge ta chi ner do re do ro ta de sta ba la ya na che ti ta ti ge ka chong go re sa na cha ti ge ta she tang be ka sang asul ge ta nam jing ke ge na cha chim se ge do ro ta da da ti cha ti ge je tang be ka se ko rang ga da re ge na ba kan do me ti chong go res.
So what we're looking at from left to right is the syllables of the adult song tutor's song.
Ta da tang po te la ta ba na nga su ge ta chi ka ti re do do re ge ane ko adult song tutor se ge do ta dharma imba kan si la je te lam ye gi gen se go ro ta te ge je ge ane ko ge da chachim re da re chong go yo res.
Dawa, do you want to imitate a bird?
You're right, Chetanana. You may ask them and me. We may have.
Does anybody want to try to imitate a bird?
Chagi ledu chini ayo se Chetanana.
Right? Okay, so you could go, and that would be represented by these syllables, and the strength of that sound that you can hear, whether it's high-pitched or would be represented by the frequency and the amplitude that we're looking at here.
Chaki jagdo, chaki mambo jagdo, ti jabati ke ta da re te nga su pha la ya ko kathido re do wa te chong go res ta da ti ge ta ti ka sa ta thu me se ko ro ta ro pitch ya pu yo me se ko ta thum bu ye mo ye te ka ri chong go res na de ge de che na de ge tho se de ge chong go res.
Okay, so this whole entire thing is called a spectrogram, and this is the data that scientists who study birdsong use.
Ta da de samala ya nyam to don ba na ka se ge na ta spectrogram se ge do ta nga su ge she shi se shana nga su ge jende tele she o she ro tsa yo ra she se ge res ane ta de ka se stambala ya ane cha ge ta ke ta she de la ya ane simji chi ge pe che ta ge thir chi cha ge res.
So I told you in this figure that the animal. Oh yeah.
Sorry about that.
Go back.
Yeah.
For yes.
Tin natu tujini do omadila.
He's asking a question. What does that box in the
These?
Yes, what does that represent?
This is really just highlighting two different syllables that have different acoustic properties. This one having acoustic properties across the frequency spectrogram, and this one having, some syllables that are a bit louder, so you can see the intensity of these lower frequency syllables is more intense.
Tatanda di kare songore sana gela trate ro da de la ya trisi ni chi sha do o de la ro tiga kari chongore sena ta dena ne chi ta dang la ya chechu mando yo pi ge dra mando ani chongore syllable ta chchim re ta tanda nga chu ga da re se chana ro chongore ta phajo cha the bai bai na phajo sa te bai na ko ge chonthra do chi pa do re do mang chi shi pa in ba la ya ta ko ge ya de shi thumbu yo pa ka shi la ko ge da ge chanyam bo yo pa so ro da 다 수조사 대인반반나 서포티가 가수가 다 첨부요파 청거로와 다 첨부요파때 뒤쇼 마우 값스 다 첨부요파 다티 청거요 레스다 대인반나 양코 다 만도 아니게 그런 게 최초 만도 같은 거 요파때 레스.
So the point of this whole figure was to emphasize this idea that the adult song looks like this. The juvenile at 51 days post-hatch, you can see that it looks different. And then once the juvenile is at 90 days, you can see that this spectrogram looks very similar to the adult song. So this is the process, we're seeing the process of that vocal learning.
다 단다 데나네 차야데 가리 청거레스나 다 땅포티 강강게 telaya 아니 차 터마치케지 땅바임바나 코수게 telaya 다텔aya 체치 가리 오파데 체로와 다 파마티게 가리 청거레스나 다 치우치스고로다 니마 가싱 가싱고비 치우치긴바나 코게 제테 장베 값사 되게 달라야 체치 가리 오파데레스 라 다 타마텔aya 차 다코게 치우티게 니마 구출을 해페 값사 장스탄발aya 아니 코게 체치 가리 오파데로와 다 단다 두스타바임바나 딜라테네 데다 코랑게 차게 셰테 장베 주름라테네 데테 아니 강게테타 옥tin shega parolaya yan koge da drasgoro da jetege dralaya en tanda di sher di jipaim baina dravi chayo pate dustengiyores.
I told you that there was this time period that was important for the bird during the bird's development to learn the adult tutor's song, and this is called a critical period. Also, you could also see that as a sensitive period of learning.
Ta ti ngola ya ngaso karishore sestambalaya ta china mi baina ko kei jangalaya nenga ko tisu chigore jangaya ke tisu chigore la shayores ta ti baina tilaka ke tisu tilaka sigresena ne nenga ko tisu sigres.
Okay, so now go ahead.
I have a question. That question is, what happens in case of brood parrotism? Brood parrotism, in which I think a cuckoo lays her eggs in the nest of crow, and the crow keeps on feeding the cuckoo. And during that time, like, how does sound production happens? If you said that vocal imitation happens, I just want to know.
I didn't fully catch the question, did you?
It says if a cuckoo bird lays the egg in a crow's nest, and the bird will hatch, and you have mentioned that the bird will mimic learning the song. So how does that affect the cuckoo?
So we're talking about a different species of bird is now in the songbbird's nest. Okay.
Now, cuckoo bird is a songbird, right? Cuckoo. Ta cuckoo la mi jena kare ore. Cuckoo ra. Yeah, this is a songbird. And then if that bird is like that bird's egg was in a crow ra.
Brood, we call it brood parrotism.
So the question really is, if one type of songbird is in a different type of songbird's nest.
No, not at all a songbird.
Not at all a songbird.
Yeah, crow, C-R-O-W, crow.
Okay.
So how will that affect the learning process if...
This is a great question. And I think I was really going to ask you to think about this question and how you would test it experimentally. So what you're getting at, and what I would like you to think about as a group and come up with an experimental way of testing the idea that the critical period is important for the song, for learning the song. So I want you in your groups to think about an experimental way that you could test that hypothesis.
How about this is about the critical period?
About the critical period,
Okay.
which is in somewhat the same sort of question
Okay,
here.
okay,
Like,
yeah.
so that bird is in its critical period, but not with its tutor. So that's
Yes,
that's the question he's asking. But that's really an experiment, honestly.
다 gelä toite karasna kukula na shakyura ra kushura kuyure ta gelä toite karasna keti shakushuchi kes ra keti gongate ane khata ge shakhata ra chakhata ge changna shasha bai bai na ta gelä ge soala ya ngasu ge khoge chati ge ke jans tambala ya ledui chi de jangar sagiores ta den tambala ya kuku ge chitruti che bana chitruti ge ke jala ya ani chepar karyong gres desa that is tambala ada tanda ge te ta toate yapu dos ta toate tan drewe ge ngile chela chetsula ya rukhana no twitter chi achi tanda dela ya nenga ge tutsu se chi ngoto chi sha yes ra ta nenga ge tutsu se de ko tutsu ngi chi ka sa jam bana singre majana singwa se gorwa tin tambala ya nenga ge tutsu dela ya takse chiala ya ani chechu ge takse ge drum kandas diksares takse kandas chesares tal hober ta chachi tal hober ta yang ko je tangni ge chachi ge baina se gor darwa ta dela ya ko chu ge hober ta tanda ge nenga ge tisi de ta thase se gor da ti shiba chiala chechu ge takse kandas chesares ti la ne trade jero chesa ti chochi ne tanda gela ge trot ta ne chipa chag do sa try hamare. He has a question. He said he has a question.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Which is?
He's asking if he can ask the question.
A question just for me? For the whole group?
아니 니티바 딘도지 리도게나 단단가조 아니 지우지게네 아니 케디 자야나 코랑기 팔라자네 장기레라라 타파라기 제카레 타마데 코 치파치기안 땅고 아니 나 소세기야 뉴로플라스티시티 타나죠 와지 아니 와지 냠시 베조다 아니 코랑기야 제 사와디네 소 아니 라기 타나데
His question is, you have mentioned that a bird will learn the song from his father. Or so his question is, does the bird can use the bird's neuroplasticity to sing a different song, or that bird need to sing exactly song that the father taught?
There's
Or the
a little
Albert
bit
Bird
of
song.
neuroplasticity, so the song is very similar, but not 100%
Okay, okay.
identical. So it's a little, it's somewhat unique to that bird, but when you look at it on the spectrogram, it looks very, very similar.
Okay. That andate palagi je sagoro ta chate ge palate je jansa te ge she tanta jacha ja chipa yong mares. Ta peta hala manchi she chipa yong res. Dravicha shu choyores. Ta te kap simbana chate ge yang ko wansa ge nyen shi pecho tang de ta cha chitu te la ya kurang ge chechu pe ge chechu te yong ngoyong res. Desa. Ta triderchi. Then hello.
Hey. I'd like to hear from one group's experiment and how they would design an experiment to test this idea that there's a critical period for song learning. One group.
Ta tanda rukhachi ke dekola desi jaro che srwa ta chachi bana chati ke kurang je jangrwa che jambe kaps je jangya la ta nenga ke tuchig la che dus ta yoba de kanas tak se chi ra to chi ge bes ma chi sono che sa. Oh, nice.
All right, you choose, Dawa.
Huh?
You choose. Which group are we going to listen to?
I will choose someone that doesn't have someone that rests their hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's even bad.
ngazurung ho chana tanda
I want to. That's
Okay,
good.
describe
yes.
your experiment, please.
Yes.
다 tanda 시기는 마고 파마사는 마 시니로 니마 그저 봐라 다 깨도 신으고도 니마 그저 봐라 다 시기 춘주 송으로지 야 선점지네 아니 동보 니마 순절 받에 아니 파마도 카트니 지샤 아니 되니 순진의 주저 받의 카트니 지샤 주진의 그저 받의 카트니 지샤 다 되노니 아니 깨야 시야 가르로 오시죠 다치잖아 아니 고
당보 심제로와 보고 심제로와
책송이라
당보 심제년 담바년 발마라냠도 작으로 하면도 작으로
동부 지대 아니 니마 동부는 순주 받아 파면 냥차 아니 샹바데 순주니 제 시그님바데 순주니 주저 받듯샤 시그송바데 아니 주진의 그저 받듯샤니 아니야 따고 के करिया शिकता ने अनि तिसी तर
तंपोते पेचने तंपोने समझ जिला माले रो
ले
so our experiment design is if we have a songbird
Okay, I'm listening.
and the three kala gorta chicks the gurwa three with the three bird small bird.
So we have an adult, right? An adult bird?
Yes, adult bird with the three small bird. Tambote nyama sumchila tampone sunchpa ta sha. Nyane sumchin tuchpa sha. So we will leave one of the bird with the adult bird for the first 30 days.
So this bird, one bird
will stay with the adult bird for the first 30 days.
For how many days?
30 days. 30. First 30 days.
Okay.
And the second bird will stay with the adult in the next 30 days, meaning from day 30 to day 60.
Okay.
And the third bird will stay with the adult from P60 to P90.
Okay, great. And then what?
That then we will test which bird has the better song.
Okay. What exactly are you going to measure? What do you mean by better song?
That under the Kassuga Kari Kangi Yaposhisha said it's a Kalagore, Karitagin base.
Korong dal
Tatela driver.
Korong
we will compare their songs with the adult song to see the similarities.
So you're going to measure maybe the spectrogram of each one.
Yes. Tatange de la ya chi remuchi tansong rwa dragi tan drewe gi thirch tansong tete ane tat termate gi je gi ane ko shetikte ta sherite ta nyam durgur was re
And compared to the adult.
yes
Yes. Okay. What do you, if there is a critical period, what do you expect to see for the P0 to P30 animals?
ta kete kusula ya nenga ko tsu chi yo pa imbaina ane nyama tangpo ne sunchi per ta ane cha ta dharma te ta nyam ta shanye gi chitu chi warwa te la ya kare chi chongai gi rewa chi gi yo esa
dige shende tanda gemba she longi jora te to dracho ndabu yo more similar to
it says for the P0 to P30 there's more similarity in the spectrogram with the adult.
So this will be similar to the adult?
More similar, yes.
More similar? What about the P30 to the P60? Will that be similar?
Sumchine tuchitela?
chikbare kusumiyora kusonde dise mandala shara tambodi chigne nyima sunjiro
re
nibade ani sunjine tujibara chimbade ani tujile shara dingel shaya marda 두지는 그지 쳐봐도 딩을 추니 gembanyan도 샤야 말아.
샤요 말아다 단다게 텔라야 가서 nga tsuki sheri chi warwa tila drupa imba na tangpote chirangi nima lekone sunchipata nyamta danyi tila ya ndra chiwa yore lai ba ta nima sumchini tukchipata danyi tila
다 tisumde 되래. tisumde 수도 아니 셀람게다 드라완도 딘 라슈데 기 디세데 critical period 라고 하는 거죠.
Our approach is we will compare this spectrogram with the three of their spectrum with the adult, and we will see which way has more similarities to the adult, and with that we can say that could be or that may be the critical period.
Okay,
for song
I
learning.
understand that. Let me ask you, could you make a prediction in advance of which one of these time periods you would guess to be most similar or least similar to the adult?
다 제수게 최저치 지로시다. 다 델라이 제수 티츠 만도 숨태셔야로. 내게 나네 강기 진다 쳐요서래 강기 진다 쳐요서래. 근데 대딱 나네 제수 대바이나 당가수 nengo 티츠티 데레사지 제수게 아니 최저치 짓게 돼서.
먼저 최세 제레스 최세 가르쳐서는 샤부진의 순지법 로추에 걸어 자한데 야를 아니 critical period 레서 가서도 최세 제레스 아니 다들 단에 따져서도 제레 아니 다디야 호 다기를 세죠.
Yes, we hypothesized that from P0 to P30 that bird will learn the song better, and that is that we hypothesized that is the critical period for song learning.
Okay, and so then these two animals will not learn the song as well as the adult. Is that correct?
들어와. 다단다데 오거든 샤게 땅포테 나신게 야부지 잠트 말에서 들어와.
제 담보노시 야 용거 말이에요.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. This is a good experiment. One thing I like about this experiment is the idea that you have different groups. There's one thing that's missing, though, from this experiment, and it's the idea of a control experiment.
다단다 제수게 당 데가서 다시게 고바데 야고 디샤스라 다 데나네 제수라 체바지 가르치샤스나 네 당정기로 같이 민두스 타무가 다 카노
단지루가 산나다 민두스 간저기 단지루가 산나다 템바제샤스
We forgot think about the control group.
Say what?
We forgot.
You forgot to think about the control group. Okay, that's okay. They're equally as important. So maybe you could think about another bird that maybe is with the adult the whole time. So this one could be a positive control, where you would predict that this one absolutely would look like the adult because there's been no separation at all.
다 단다들라야 지치바이바나 로아 단다 양세 치우치샤 치우테바나 코 진이 진이마 구치 간살라야 단다 치우 gem바테 단냠데 데바치샤나 양코 tanzinde positive 그 tanz스거도 왔다 tanz응이마스거로와 호텔에 샤바이바나 다치 진다 가수게 디샤바이바나 리와데 카르치고레 시스템발라 치우 데게 셰테다 धर्मतिकी शेतन्ता हालन रासोयं ग्रेसा त रो चिपचिचन ग्रेसा त गासुगे यको तंजंग नशान डिकोरेस.
The other thing that's nice about this experiment is that you have something that is measurable. So you're going to measure the spectrogram or the acoustic output of the animal. And you've made a prediction that's testable. And when you get your data back, you will look at it and you'll say, oh, okay, the data support my prediction, or the data don't support my prediction. So you have that ability to make some inference from what you've measured.
aha ta tanda de la ya chechu ge takshe ge changgo te la ya ko zansha shenda ji kare do sena ane chiti kare sena chechu ge yang chen je yu chu ge cha che chi do sti ka la na nga su ge share te res ku su ge dra la tene de te dra te ta ko thir la pap dab ta ane ta chi yo res ro te ya go dos shemba de tanda chechu ge chhoisha sha ba te res te ya go res tang po chhoisha chi chi ne te ge je la ya ane ko tang thu te dur chi de te ne thama te la ya yang ko te la tene de je pa chi ya chi yo ro tanda ge ta tang thu dur chi ba te la tene de te chhoisha te la ja chu chi gindu ja chu chi gindu se ge yang ko ta dun chi ja chi ro te ya go dos.
Okay.
I want to play the song.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to play the song?
Yeah, again, zopala, jiste chtamsta. Ta chute ni shosho parish. Te la yajite. Te mare. Te mare che. Allez, dans l'ordre si tu t'éteins, ok? Qu'est-ce que tu as dit?
Oh.
I like it. Kaya ang gumanda. Makusok ang jamo jajag doa.
It's okay.
Ale one kasha sare.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate all of your effort for doing that.
Laso tuche. Ta jende tuche dituge. Ta ke abu jangdo chesu ke dinner marish je marish. Yeah, next.
There we go. Okay. This experiment, these data that I'm showing you is almost exactly the experiment that you guys came up with.
So
the data are shown a little bit differently from what was described, but on the x-axis you see the age of the juvenile when it was removed from the tutor. So when, and on the y-axis, what you're seeing is the percent of song that was learned from the tutor measured at 180 days later.
kusugi she jamba chigora chitu tizugi she janjo tete ane cha termatiki she ta durba imbaina ane jacha kasuchin raudu se terwa durba te ane nima kasu jile dosha nima jata jechu gi chamla ro nima jechu nima jata jechu gi jela ya durjurin do otike jacha te tongo res.
So when we look at these data, if we start from over here, when an animal was removed at 120 days post-hatching, this animal was able to learned 100% of the tutor's song.
That another kasarwa ketis that chu the chachembuti gandamne kate rwa ane ko ma la te nimajata nyushi jila lamba imbaina chatege ane ko ta shete jachak jajansha.
When an animal was removed at 65 days post-hatch, this animal was able to sing most, but not quite all, of the tutor song. Similarly, for the animal that was removed at 50 days post-hatch,
but the
animal that was removed at 35 days post-hatching was unable to learn any of the tutor song. And they show you on the right-hand side a spectrogram, not quite as elegant as the one that I've shown you before, but a spectrogram of the tutor song down here, the song of the bird removed at 65 days, and the one that was removed at 35 days. So again, if you compare the pattern of this bird's song to the tutor, it looks pretty similar, not 100% identical, but quite similar.
And then
this is the spectrogram of the bird at 35 days, when it was removed at 35 days, and this animal's spectrogram looks very different compared to this one. So this is an example of how we know that there is this critical period for song learning.
That they can send us the chaching bana chatela kugi shete jangala asagora and a nengache to 6 years, but they and a ko toagi tashichi race.
Okay, so we're going to shift. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Until 30 Samara, the critical time lady, the little coilers, Pena Milla Peshaswaya, Milliki to Sudi Baina, the low Kune, low Churus Badura, Inki Chang to Suda Yakshoro Chera, until the critical times in a miller with the shadow Chera. And at the delay Shijabaina Juradi, Tandidi, Digi the Chadigirada, Giganum the Tuzu Kaja Mangshotana. And King is a Yaksho Chan Tui was 10 years old. In a chatty medicine to critical time, the digital and Yaksho Chan Tourist and the contestant tourist. The critical time like condition shower, did it again towards Odi. Do you like show your young specific time show your rest?
So from the morning session, we have learned for human beings, the critical time for learning a language is between the age of 9 to 16. So we have 9 to 16 rock. Yes, sir.
Also, we have a range of time.
Yeah.
And so my question is, what exact is the critical time? Through this experiment, it seems like whoever spent more time with the adult has more more similarity between the song and the elder song.
Yeah.
But so is there like, so in this, what I see is from this experiment, whoever spend more time with the elder has more of the learning capacity, but should we consider that more time, or that is a time period in the development or growth?
I think thank you for that good question. The point or the takeaway that you can make from this is that not necessarily the amount of time per se, but if there is no exposure to the song in this time frame, then the animal can't acquire the adult's tutor song. They can't learn it, even though they might be exposed to the adult after this time period. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have like any other experiment that shows after the critical period that they cannot learn? Because she is saying that from this experiment we just see that the more time you spend with your tutor from the birth, you learn more of the song. If you don't spend much time, you don't learn the song at all. So for instance, like removed at day 35, day 50, day 65, and the 120. So that's like longer the time you spend with the...
I see.
So her question is, how do you make the case that the critical period is proved in this?
I think in this, I'll have to go back and double check, but I feel like in this experiment, the animal was taken away from the tutor until for 35 days, and then put in the presence of the tutor. So, at day 36, so for this particular animal, at post, so it's
removed at day 35?
Removed from the adult tutor from 0 to 35, and then put back with the tutor from 35 to as many days as 180 days or what have you. So they were removed at first, but then still spent a lot of time with the adult and were yet still unable to acquire the song.
Can you repeat that again? Removed from spent...
Yeah, so the birds in this group, they from P0 to P35, they were not with the tutor.
Okay.
But from P35 to P180, they were with the tutor.
Okay.
So they were with the tutor for a long period of time.
Okay.
But they were unable to acquire the song. So I do see how so these data might suggest that if you're with the animal longer, what would have been nice. Well, okay, I'll let you just.
Can you repeat that again? I just missed in between because I'm just reading this, the age in days when the journal was removed from the tutor.
Right. So. Again, so I want to verify that my information is correct. I can go back and look at this study. But my understanding is that the animals were removed
at the day 35 and the 50 and the 65 and then 20.
Right.
Yeah, so her point is valid in a sense with this graph.
Mm-hmm. So I see the point that you can make that interpretation that just the longer you spend with a tutor, the better it is.
Yes.
However, there's whether or not it's not demonstrated in these data per se, but like there's other experimental evidence that could address that question in the idea of if you took an animal away from P0 to P35 and then allowed that animal to be with the tutor for, let's say, 100 days.
Okay.
And then you took another animal out at P50.
P0 to 50, right?
P0 to 50.
And put back.
And then
Okay.
put back for the same amount of time. So you could design an experiment such that could address this idea. It's not the amount of time spent with the tutor per se, but it's the amount of time during this particular window that. But I do agree with the Cheng's point that this particular piece of data could be interpreted slightly differently, and other experiments would be needed. This isn't the only piece of evidence
Sure.
to support that idea.
Okay.
Did you understand all that, Dava?
Yes. Tanda ani chuyang lagi soyate ko tanda degane tabai manat taranjo kwala na digidus rada ani chuyang lagi kwa kala na tanda digina ne ngasola ya nenga kutuin se te kiche koshi machine digidus ko tabai na tiso ma tabai na jima jang do chitangidus tatin tabala nenga kutuin se na karis nenga tuin se na titsu chitango yorwe shoba tuin chitango dus tap mila imbana lundini debate jambana yabu jant kre timane jant kamare sigdus ta tanda imbana tu ma de bana jango yopachi tengdus ta imbana ta geles soate tanda ge digi nane ngasula ya ani chating kare yopan dige nitang cha sangwachi tengemendus ta tele ngasuge ta yang taksi shenda tinda yores ta taksi shenda tinane picha shana ani khasichi imbana ko chebani nimasum sunga pata ta kasgre ta chagamba tita nyamta masha ani tigi jela ya nyamta sha ta ko jenda ta nyamta ta kasu digchin sigoro ta ade ya ta ti yokoti imbana khasina nima tamponi nimasum sunga pata ngachu pata ani gamba tita nyamta masha chi loga ani tigi jela ya ne gamba tita nyamta betiman dukichi baimbanas ta tila tene dete ani ko ta tina do gi taksi sinji yores ta ti yobaimba tila tene dete ngasu kare ha kutkresena tichu ngije ji kapsa gamba tita nyamta yobaimba na ajiti jant khwache tichu ngije ji parola ya ne gamba tita nyamta me baimba na ajiti jam thagi neta sukoro ada ote yang ko netan tena yongres. Yes.
Are there any other follow-up questions to that explanation?
Tela ya yoesa.
tanda tiwa di gen chanchu chi tangsa wada do charo di tanda chiwu nanglo le pena dagi gen chanchu sungo na chi ko chiwu kora pama mayimba shimba chi nanglo jewa yimba ina ani ko di pa shimba jesa jora odi ke di shingri shing mara se kesi di shingri yeba ina chiwu di ania ngone ke ondi zimba ko kora pama mayimba ke di shing yan jesu pama nyamdo shaba ina pama ke di shingri shing mara tunda do de ko chiudi ke manda ni singri sing mare seji rosa shagri sang mare
not directly related to this, but it's related to the caution that he has, because his caution is when a bird is hatched in a different species nest, will that bird learn the song or the language that species of bird use? And if in the later time, if we remove that bird and put it back to its own species, will that bird learn their own species language? So he's saying that will that bird will become a bilingual, or like will know the two different song or language that the two different types of bird use?
Okay, so this is a more general question about just one songbird being in another songbird, being raised by foster parents of another songbird. Okay, what do you think? The classic instructor move. So tell me, that's a great question. What do you think?
the ngazo mil jawa ina ko language jaya joro pe ina ngazo pebara bu manjachi ani inji dine phamaji nyamdo shabana ko tangbo indication ro ra dine khali je chuyang chuju peba phaman nyamdo shabana phege jabdo war sin ro khali ti ke se language ni jaya indi samba sin ro samba phaji chiude ke ni singiri samdan dos.
For instance, for human beings, if a child is born to a Tibetan family, but it's adopted by English-speaking parents, through mimicking, the child will learn English. And in the future, if we bring the child back to the Tibetan society, the children will learn Tibetan language as well. So if we think that way, the learning language by mimicking, the songbird will learn both the songs.
As long as you're still within this time frame that learning can occur. Right? So we talked about that with humans, and it's also true in birds that if the human is with the English-speaking family until they're an adolescent, and then they get moved to a Tibetan family, it will be much harder for them to learn Tibetan. They can, but it will be harder.
Yeah. That there is that andagi chorong ko somba ta res ta kete ko ta yapu shuchi siguro ta ko yapu shuchi shigu yo pa na tanda nga suge nenga ko titsi do ga otiga parotela ya ta chongu yo res ro ta mila tus chongo re chala tus chongu yo res ta tinda ma chong ba che ani ketis ro ta tanda ki chorong ko pisha ba ge ta pugati imbana ko inchi ko phama to nyam to siguro ta inchi phama to nyam to mi ta ko shunu yang ko chara parta ro Shunia Charapata Dechi, and the Nengo to sit the guest on by and by now, the jail I have on a tree on by mana, poeta Tapokit, the giant jungles, and a giant pecali capuchagresta, Shella.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to skip through some slides, Jawa, because we are almost at the end of our time.
Sure.
Oops, backwards. Okay, so I skipped through some slides because we are running short of time. But what I wanted to say, and one of the reasons why I went through all of this, was to emphasize the point that songbirds are an effective model for vocal learning in humans.
Ta tata ka social media tambalaya de nane ta ko te khasi dusta ma tangsa gi yesra ta tata de la ya ta kare sana ane she te nga su gi cha ge ta she tang ni ta kenya do pe chat su gi she jang te ane nga su gi mi gi ta ke jong se la ya pe chu tang ya gi ta pis gi ya pu chi re sa de yens.
We talked a little bit about how the birds' brains and the human brains have homologous circuitry to support this vocal learning.
Ta tanda nga su gi de la issues kari ta yo re system bala ya mi gi ke jang ta sha gi je jang de la ya le pi gi na ni dalam la ya chom bi cha kari yo ba de la nga su ta yo res.
We also mentioned this idea of sort of this innate factors or biological factors like a critical period as evident both in songbird learning and in human learning.
Ta shenda nga su kari ta yo re se na mi ta nga cha ni chala imba na ta lenchi gi siguro ta nga su gi jinkam tan de bi jingyu tan de bi gi ta shin siguro pi cha sha ba na ani tanda nengo ko tutsu se ta su ke tan she te jang la ya nengo ko tutsu chi yo pa ta yo res.
And songbirds really provide a very robust system for experimentation to be able to learn and understand about vocal learning and then apply that apply it and to like make analogies around how humans also learn vocally.
Ta chage ko chage siguro ta chage ko ge shete jaya de la ya ane chi taxi rigta na chopa chi chi de ko ge ta ti nebo mapu chi la to ge thalman te yores ta tin sta malaya te tang pe chu tang de te ane mi gi ke jaya ta ya na ti gi pis gi siguro ta chongwe cha pe chu tang de ta ya mi gi ke jaya ta ya te la ya chin jwa kari tang yo me la sopa ko la ya dus nga su ge je pa chi ya gi ta ane chi chongwe cha dus do ya te yores.
So we didn't get to talk about the experiment that I was going to show you about the sensory feedback and sensory motor learning that's involved in maintaining vocal learning.
Da danda de la yang asuge taksi chi yes da danda ngasuge ta ngati wa ta ngati jongya la ya junt ngat jongwa ti junt ya la ya ani de taksi chi de yore taksi ti ngasuge wansur gi tanda wa ta wansung gusho tanda bi ge kor gi ani de la taksi chi yes da taksi ti tu sta de ja danda chonga sons.
But next time we're going to do, so tomorrow, we're going to do an activity that really relates to sensory motor learning, and one that you've done previously using prism goggles, but is really an exercise to drive home the point that sensory motor learning is critical for maintaining accurate motor movements.
Da wansur gusho gi chi sijon sia chi orwa te te nga su ge gusho tang dewe ge ta shegu tin du tak tak sia la ya ke chembo yeme ge ni shegu chi de ge insta ngomai bana shi su prison goggles ri tanda ja she gi mi she chi orwa te peche tang de tang ya chi shegu chi de yo res ro te tang dewe ge shegu chi de de te tanda ge wansur gusho te ani chi tanda de la ya ta chi tanda ke janga su ro te la kasu chi ke chembo yeme te ta gi ins.
And so with that, we'll be done for the day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
That was it. Terang also to step by yes, and Sanjay Jayons.